The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the boy's soft sobs. For 2 years, no one had been able to reach him. 6 caretakers had tried, trained professionals, experts with degrees, all of them eventually leaving in defeat, some even scarred by his bites and scratches. Yet here he was, curled up in the arms of a woman in a faded uniform, his head pressed against her chest, as though she were the only safe place in the world. Carmen, the cook, covered her mouth with trembling hands. Meu Deus, he's never done this before. The driver, Jose, stood frozen at the doorway, muttering that he must be dreaming. And in the corridor, hidden behind a marble column, the boy's father, Adrian Valila, felt his chest tighten. Since the tragic accident that claimed his wife, his son hadn't smiled, hadn't hugged, hadn't spoken. The boy had built an invisible wall around himself, and no one had ever broken through. Until now. And the woman who managed it wasn't a doctor, or a therapist, or some highly paid specialist. She was just Elena, the housemaid. A woman whose sneakers were worn thin and whose hands carried the marks of years of scrubbing floors. Yet in mere minutes, she had achieved what all the professionals couldn't. But not everyone was impressed. At the far end of the room, standing stiffly with her arms crossed, was Clara, the boy's current therapist. She had been working with him for 6 long months, studying every detail of his behavior, waiting patiently for progress that never came. Now, watching the boy nestled peacefully in Elena's arms, Clara's face stiffened. Surprise flickered in her eyes, but quickly turned into something darker: jealousy, resentment. "This isn't normal," she murmured coldly, stepping closer to Adrian. "A child like him doesn't change this fast. Something's wrong here." Adrian frowned, still staring at his son's small hands clinging desperately to Elena's blouse. "But look at him. He's calm, happier than I've seen in years." Clara lowered her voice, leaning closer so only he could hear. "And that's exactly what worries me. Sudden changes like this don't happen without a reason. Sometimes," she paused, letting her words sink in, "people provoke a child's crisis on purpose, just so they can look like a savior afterward." Adrian snapped his head toward her, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "Are you suggesting?" But Clara only nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on Elena. "I saw how she approached him. Too forceful, too eager. Think about it, Adrian. Doesn't it seem suspicious?" Elena didn't notice Clara's whispering or the suspicion brewing in the air. She was too focused on the boy in her lap, gently brushing her fingers through his messy hair. From her bag, she pulled out small cards she had made from scraps of colored paper. Each one carried a simple drawing: a red heart, a happy face, a sad face, a house, a car. "Look, Mateo," she said softly, showing him the red heart. "If you want to tell me something, you can use these. Happy, sad, angry, it's all here. You don't have to fight to be understood." The boy blinked, his eyes flickering between her face and the card. For a moment, the room seemed frozen in anticipation. Then, slowly, his tiny hand reached out and grabbed the heart. He held it close to his chest and looked up at her, a faint spark lighting his eyes. "You like Tina?" Elena teased gently, using the nickname the staff sometimes gave her. The boy gave the smallest nod, and then something miraculous happened. His lips curled into a shy, fragile smile. Carmen gasped and made the sign of the cross. "Holy Mother of God," he smiled. Jose wiped a tear from his weathered face, whispering, 2 years, and at last a smile. But not everyone shared the joy. Clara's nails dug into her palm as she clenched her fists. 6 months of tireless work, 6 months of carefully constructed sessions, and now this maid, this nobody, waltzed in and accomplished the impossible in one afternoon. The bitter taste of envy burned her throat. She leaned closer to Adrian again, her voice laced with false concern. "You see what's happening? It's too perfect, too sudden. This isn't progress, Adrian. This is manipulation." Adrian hesitated, torn between the warmth swelling in his chest as he watched his son and the logical doubts Clara planted. She was a professional, after all, with years of experience, prestigious degrees, glowing recommendations. Shouldn't he trust her judgment? And yet, his eyes returned to the boy's smile, so rare, so precious. Meanwhile, Elena continued her quiet miracle. "When you feel happy, show me this," she said, holding up the smiling face. "When you're sad, use this one." She laid the cards neatly on the coffee table, arranging them within Mateo's reach. The boy picked up the red heart again, clutching it tightly. Then, as if to prove he understood, he looked up at her and whispered one word. Hoarse, shaky, but unmistakable. "Tina." The room erupted in shock. Carmen's knees buckled, Jose covered his mouth, and Adrian's eyes filled with tears. For 2 years, his son had been silent, locked away in a world no one could enter. And now, a single word had broken that silence. But Clara didn't flinch. Her eyes narrowed, burning with silent rage. She forced a thin smile and whispered under her breath, "This isn't over." Adrian could hardly breathe. His son had spoken, after 2 long, torturous years of silence. He wanted to run to him, to scoop the boy into his arms, but something inside warned him not to interrupt the fragile connection unfolding before his eyes. Mateo's tiny hand clung to Elena's sleeve, as though letting go would plunge him back into darkness. Carmen whispered through tears, "This woman, she's an angel." But in the shadows of the room, Clara's eyes gleamed with fury. She forced her expression into one of concern and stepped closer, her voice dripping with authority. "Adrian, you must understand. This isn't progress. It's too abrupt. Children like Mateo don't simply change overnight. Something about this doesn't add up." Adrian turned, his voice sharp. Then explained his smile. "Clara, explain his voice. For years, nothing. Now, because of her, he's awake again." Clara lowered her gaze, hiding the fire in her eyes. "I've seen it before. Some people, they provoke crises. They push a child until he breaks, only to swoop in afterward and look like the savior. It's a cruel trick, Adrian, but it happens. And I fear she may have done the same." The accusation struck him like a slap. He glanced back at Elena, who was now showing Mateo the happy card again, her voice gentle, patient, genuine. Nothing about her seemed false. And yet, Clara's words buzzed like hornets in his ear. Moments later, Elena set the cards down on the coffee table and rose to fetch a glass of water for the boy. She walked calmly toward the kitchen, unaware of the storm brewing behind her. Mateo sat quietly on the floor, still holding the red heart card. Clara seized the moment. With a swift, discreet motion, she slipped the colorful cards from the table into her own bag. Her heart pounded with satisfaction as she zipped it closed. "Let's see how long her miracle lasts without these," she thought. By the time Elena returned with the glass, Mateo was searching frantically. His little hands patted the table, lifted the cushions, rummaged under the couch. His breathing grew faster, his eyes wide with panic. Where? He whimpered, his voice breaking. "They're here somewhere," Elena said quickly, kneeling to help. But the cards were gone. Mateo's whimper turned into a low, guttural cry. He clutched his head and rocked back and forth, his body trembling. No, he screamed, pounding the floor with his fists. The sound sliced through the room like glass shattering. Elena wrapped her arms around him, whispering desperately, "Sure, it's okay. Tina will find them, I promise." But her words weren't enough. The boy's cries grew louder, rawer, until he hurled himself against the wall, tears streaming down his cheeks. Adrian's heart cracked in two. He rushed forward, but Clara stepped in, her face painted with false compassion. "You see," she said solemnly, her eyes fixed on Adrian's. "I warned you. This is what happens when a child is manipulated. He's worse than before." Carmen stared at her in confusion, whispering, "But he was fine a moment ago." Clara placed a hand on Adrian's arm, squeezing gently as though to console him. "Adrian," she destabilized him. "I told you, progress this sudden is never real. Now he's suffering because of her." Adrian looked between the two women. Elena, fighting desperately to soothe his son, and Clara, calm, certain, professional. Doubt wrapped around his chest like iron chains. Mateo's screams echoed through the mansion. and the choice before Adrian felt heavier than anything he had ever faced. The echoes of Mateo's cries lingered long after he finally collapsed into exhausted silence. Elena stayed by his side, stroking his hair until his breathing slowed. She whispered lullabies under her breath, old songs her mother used to sing when nights were heavy and hope felt far away. Slowly, the boy clung to her again, trembling, his head buried against her chest. From the doorway, Adrian watched, torn in two. His son's suffering cut him deeper than any wound, yet he couldn't deny the truth of what he had seen earlier. The laughter, the smile, the word that broke 2 years of silence. Was it all just coincidence? Or had Clara's warning been right? That night, as shadows stretched long across the mansion, Adrian summoned Elena to his office. The mahogany desk between them felt like a wall. He slid open a drawer and pulled out a delicate golden bracelet, its surface glittering under the lamp. "Do you recognize this?" he asked gravely. Elena's eyes widened. "No, I've never seen it before." Clara said she found it in your uniform pocket. Her heart dropped. "What? That's impossible. I swear I never touched it. Why would I?" "It belonged to my late wife," Adrian said, his voice breaking. "It was her favorite, and now it appears in your pocket." Elena's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "Mr. Valila, I've worked since I was 14. I've scrubbed floors, cleaned houses, and never stolen so much as a coin. Please, you have to believe me. Someone put it there." But Adrian's gaze hardened. The evidence sat in his palm, undeniable. "I don't want to believe it," he whispered. "But what other explanation do I have?" Her knees weakened. She staggered out of the office, her chest heavy with despair. In the hallway, Clara was waiting. Her lips curled into a soft, venomous smile. "Rough conversation?" she asked sweetly, feigning innocence. Elena stared at her, fury rising through her grief. "It was you. You planted it." Clara's laughter was quiet, sharp as broken glass. "What a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" Elena's fists clenched. She had nothing, only her guts screaming the truth. And Clara knew it. Over the next days, whispers spread through the staff. Clara, in her delicate way, planted seeds of doubt. "She's young, pretty, clever," she said in hushed tones. "And the master, well, he's a lonely widower. Do you really think she's here only to clean?" The mansion, once filled with warm greetings, turned cold. Eyes followed Elena with suspicion. Conversations fell silent when she entered a room. Even Carmen, who had gasped in wonder at Mateo's smile, grew distant. On Thursday afternoon, Adrian called her again. His expression was stern, colder than before. From his drawer, he pulled out another jewel. This time, a necklace that had belonged to his wife. "This was found in your bag," he said. Elena's breath caught. No, I swear, I don't know how. I can't tolerate thieves in my house," Adrian said, his voice shaking. "I trusted you. My son trusted you." Tears blurred Elena's vision. "I'm innocent," she cried. "I would never harm him, never betray you. Please." But her pleas were swallowed by the heavy silence. The other servants gathered at the doorway, whispering, their eyes cold. Adrian's final words struck like a hammer. "Leave this house. Now." Her hand shook as she untied her apron and laid it on the desk. With her old leather bag slung over her shoulder, she walked out into the night, her heart breaking, not for herself, but for the little boy crying at the window above, his tiny fists pounding against the glass. "Tina!" Mateo's desperate voice pierced the silence, his first true cry for her. "Tina, don't go." Elena looked up through her tears, whispering to herself, "I'll come back for you, little one, no matter what it takes." Behind the curtains, Clara watched with quiet triumph, her smile hidden in the shadows. Days turned into a blur of silence. Mateo refused to eat, refused to sleep, and his little body shook with sobs every time he whispered her name, Tina. Adrian's heart broke with guilt, but Clara was always there, reminding him, "This is for the best." She was dangerous. "You must protect your son." But one night, while reviewing footage from the newly installed security cameras, Adrian's world collapsed. On the screen, Clara appeared in the playroom with Mateo. At first, she smiled sweetly. Then, when she thought no one was watching, her hand tightened cruelly on his arm. "See," she hissed. "She left you. She never loved you." Mateo whimpered, rocking back and forth. Clara's grip only tightened. Adrian's blood ran cold. His hands trembled as he replayed the video again and again, the truth hammering into him. Elena had been right all along. Clara wasn't a savior. She was the monster hiding in plain sight. The next morning, Adrian drove to the small blue house on the edge of the city. Neighbors gathered at their windows as he knelt on the doorstep, voice shaking. "Elena, please, forgive me. I was blind. I have proof now, proof that you were innocent, and she was guilty all along." The door opened slowly. Elena stood there, her eyes red from days of crying. Behind her, her frail mother peeked out, worry etched across her face. Adrian showed the video on his phone. Elena's hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling as she watched Clara torment the boy she loved. "You see," Adrian whispered, his own voice breaking. "Mateo needs you. I need you. Come back. Not as a servant, but as family." For a long moment, Elena stared at him, torn between pain and hope. Then, from the street, a small figure cried out, "Tina!" Mateo ran from the car where Carmen had been waiting with him. His little arms wrapped around Elena's legs, his voice louder, clearer than ever before. "Tina, stay. Please stay." Elena fell to her knees, gathering him in her arms. "I'll never leave you again," she promised through sobs. Adrian joined them, his voice steady for the first time in years. "Then stay forever with both of us." And as neighbors clapped and Carmen wept with joy, Mateo smiled, a wide, pure smile that lit the world around him. For the first time since the tragedy, the Valila mansion would no longer be a house of sorrow, but a home filled with love.